Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to a double header. We had the show earlier on today, and some people got a little bit over emotional. Not me, not me. It wasn't the wife. It was some so-called supporters. The moment I mentioned about a particular player, and it wasn't even Kai Havertz. Wasn't even Kai Havertz. It was Thomas Partey. Thomas Partey. Yeah, Thomas Partey. And a bit of Mikel Arteta. Ah, dearie me. Anyway, we've got the original Godfather himself back touring. He's on tour around North
On
London.
tour. Godfather on tour.
And we've also got Prosper as well. Prosper and the hotel.
Prosper is
Happy
doing
New Year to
good.
you guys. Nice one. Lovely jubbly, lovely jubbly. So on the morning show, I was speaking about Marquinhos. I'd forgotten about Marquinhos. He'd been loaned out to FC Nantes, and apparently Arsenal are considering whether to recall him back or not. And my little jib was, why are we buying players to loan them out so quickly? Why can't we just keep them at Arsenal, under 23s or under 21s, rather than send them out on loan, LTL? Do I have a case, or am I talking rubbish?
Well, do you know what? I think, listen, I like to keep things upbeat and all of that, but we have to question our buying policy and our background checks on players. When I was thinking about this earlier today, I was thinking we've had a number of players come in that you begin to think, why? What did they see in this player? Because we aren't seeing it on the pitch at Arsenal. And a good example would be Nuno Tavares, who came in, was it a couple of seasons ago? Looked incredibly athletic, looked a superb athlete, but what people started to question his attitude, and of course, with Arteta being a bit of a he guy is a bit of a sort of doctrinaire sort of guy. You're either with him or go away, and it's his way or the highway or whatever they call it. And Nuno obviously rubbed him up the wrong way, and I'm not saying he was. It might be partially Nuno's fault as well, but he goes off to Forest, and he's hardly played for them. And the rumours I hear are he's fallen out with the different people who've been running it. They've got a different Nuno running it now, haven't they? Espirito Santo. So I mean, look at Fabio Vieira now. He's just a lightweight. He's a lightweight. He falls to the ground. He doesn't look an upgrade or even half as good as some of the lads we've got. I really am a bit puzzled as to why we bought him. Now, when Marquinhos, is it pronounced Marquinhos?
Marquinhos.
When he came in, he had played a couple of good games, and then he looked a little bit what I'd call a greenhorn. He looked a little bit inexperienced. So they've gone and loaned him out. So I'm beginning to wonder, is our buying policy jumping on players quick before the big Italian clubs find them, which is possible, which often happens at PSG in Paris, or some of the Italian clubs, or some of the German clubs, Bayern Leverkusen and so on. They tend to find these players, buy them, and suddenly 2 years down the line, Arsenal trying to buy them for inflated fees. But we seem to have bought Marquinhos and loaned him out almost straight away. So I do worry. There seems to be a lot of questions, even post Raul Senlehi and his famous dodgy deal for Pepe, which we were all scratching our heads about years after. I do wonder, because I would have thought one of the first things you do is you get word on the ground, and you can go and see a player, obviously playing for the team you're buying. But what about his temperament? What kind of a person is he? Has he got issues that are going to cause a problem at Arsenal? And we don't seem to be good at doing that. And that's what kind of worries me. I think we've had our fingers burnt with Partey, because Partey, as probably most of you may know, or if not, you should, I think he only had 1 or 2 games injured in about 4 years with Atletico Madrid. And he came to Arsenal. He's a wonderful player, but he started to get injuries. And then those injuries multiplied. And they were often what they call soft tissue, muscular injuries. And we had about 7 or 8 years ago, we had a query about whether the pitches at London Colney were too hard, the training pitches, which is why the players were picking up all these soft tissue injuries. So they had a few of them relayed to see if that would make any difference. But there seems to be a bit of a question mark about when we're buying these players. We've got to, number one, make sure that they're fit for the sort of rigors of the English Premier League, which is very different from the slow, quick, slow of a lot of European leagues. And then do a background check on the personality, the character of the player that you're thinking of bringing in.
Prosper, you was on the show earlier on today.
Yeah.
We spoke about, or I spoke about Thomas Partey. And I think you said that we should not sell him just yet because we're still thin for numbers in the squad. So, your thought?
I think let me pick it up from where our senior started, Elta. We're really doing a mess in the transfers, and immaturity in management is also costing us a lot, because why is it that the question I would ask is, why is it that everything seems to be pointing to the locker room or to the manager? Why is everything pointing to the manager? I mean, if it was only one player who has a problem and then he's kicked out, we would understand. But it's been a series of players kicked out of Arsenal for probably petty reasons. I remember back in the days in English football, we used to have players like Paul Gascoigne in the 93s, 94. That guy was a problem, and I don't think he's anywhere close to the players Arteta is just kicking out for petty reasons. There's also players like Balotelli who are a headache to manage, but other managers manage them. They manage to get something out of them, because at the end of the day, you need players that can make you cross that line. And some players might not be that disciplined. Ronaldinho was one of them, but he will make you cross that line. So sometimes you need such players. But Arteta is kind of a hothead, too much of a hothead for me. Now, coming back to the Partey issue, for me, I strongly feel Thomas Partey doesn't need to go right now. I don't, from my side of everything, right now we're not supposed to be thinking of selling any players. We already have a lot of homework in our back room. Right now we're supposed to be thinking of adding a center forward, probably another defending midfielder. Let's leave selling of players to the end of the season, because tactically we're not okay already. So we're supposed to be thinking more of, okay, who do we bring in to strengthen the team from what it is right now? Then if we need to do any offloading business, we'll have a lot of time to do that offloading business at the end of the season.
Okay, all right. Good evening, Tony. Tuesday the Slip Boy. How are you?
I'm well. I'm sorry for my lateness. I literally came out of the dentist with my mouth completely numb, so I had to rest. And I just seen it out. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Are you okay? Are you okay to participate, or would you rather?
All good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in working order again.
Okay. Cool. So we've just been talking about Marquinhos, who I had completely forgotten about. Tony, out on loan. They went to Norwich and he's out at FC Nantes. And if you believe everything you read in the newspapers, Arsenal are allegedly thinking about recalling him. And then we've just been speaking about Thomas Partey. And now Thomas Partey was a discussion we had about on an earlier show. So your thought, actually my thought is, why are we buying these players, Tony, only to loan them out? He's been loaned out 2 times now. Why can't we keep him at Arsenal, playing in under 23s? He's close to us. We've said so many times that Bukayo Saka tag teamed, kicked all over the place, probably gone off form. Surely it'd be right for Marquinhos, because Marquinhos plays on that right-hand side there. Why are we doing this to those players? Why can't we keep them rather than loaning them out? What's going on at Arsenal, Tony?
I mean, it's a strange situation with Marquinhos. It's a story of a lot of players that have come to the club. When you think about it, we have a number of players, young players especially, who come to the club. Albert Sambi Lokonga is another one who's currently in the same situation. You know, young players, when they're not quite ready for the club, they decide, okay, do we keep them in-house and train them? I remember you saying a bit earlier today about Michael Olise, you know, or do you let them go out on loan and gain valuable experience in a first team? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, there are different degrees of, you know, how that transcends into a future career, because in some cases they go away, they come back, you know, and it works. Others, they go away and you think, you know what, your career is better served somewhere else. Especially, I mean, if you look at the likes of Joe Willock, you know, there's a classic example, a good player that was used fleetingly at Arsenal, went away, did well, you know, and the club that he went to thought, you know, he's worthy of us keeping him, and he's become an integral part of what is a very good Newcastle team. But you know, it's all about levels. You know, the level Newcastle were at when he was there was exactly what they needed. At a club like Arsenal today, you know, is he a player that could have been serviceable? I believe he could have been, but I'm not going to protestate about, well, we should have kept him, we shouldn't have done, because ultimately I look at the midfield now and I think, well, he would have struggled. You know, he would have struggled potentially, you know, when you look at Odegaard, Havertz, Rice, ESR at the time, you know.
Sorry, you mean
Thomas Partey.
struggle to get game time, or you mean struggle?
Yeah, he would have struggled to get game time. He
Yeah.
would have been sat in the same position as Reece Nelson right now. You know, a serviceable player who you think could do a job, but probably is just not getting the minutes because other players have been brought in and are getting those, you know, those minutes ahead of him.
Yeah.
But me personally, you know, I personally would have loved to have seen him, you know, given a chance. But that's the problem now. You know, you've got players who are at the club being told, we'll give you a chance. And unfortunately, as I said earlier, you know, there are players at Arsenal just not getting a look in. And I fear for, if you bring in a Marquinhos, where does he, you know, what does he do? He sits on a bench for months on end. If you can't play Reece Nelson, who you are paying £100,000 a week instead of Saka in any time, what's Marquinhos going to do? Who is Marquinhos better than at Arsenal right now?
Well, I would say we haven't really seen Marquinhos. He scored one goal for us, I think, in the Europa League.
Yeah.
So there's not enough sample, I would say. But going by what we've seen so far, comparing Reece Nelson to Marquinhos, you go for obviously Reece Nelson, wouldn't you?
There you go.
Thomas Partey, Tony.
You stirred my emotions. You stirred my emotions.
He's no use to us, Tony, if he's always going to be injured. As much as people say, and from what I've seen, when he plays, He's probably still the best player that we have at Arsenal, but he's no use to us if he is always injured. Didn't make it to the AFCON. Didn't make it to the AFCON. Why? Because Mr. Houghton said, actually, you know what? We don't want to risk it. Going by the reports I've read about his injury, we're not going to risk it. So he's not gone to the AFCON. Thomas Partey is no use to us if he's always going to be injured. And I would sell him in January, Tony.
Yeah.
I would sell him.
Okay, so let's talk about Thomas Partey.
Oh.
Thomas Partey is no good to us. He's the same rhetoric you could use for a number of players who are injured right now or have been injured, in the past.
For example,
for instance, Emil Smith-Rowe.
I've said we should sell him.
Most notably, Emil Smith-Rowe.
I've said we should sell him.
William Saliba was injured like the end of last season. Is he not service? Is he not the kind of player that we want at Arsenal because he's too injury prone? Did we not lose Gabriel Jesus for pretty much half of last season? Because to me, if I'm going to choose out of which of those two players is who has been injury prone over the last 2 seasons, you might as well get rid of Gabriel Jesus, because I'd rather have Thomas Partey if I'm choosing a player who's injury prone. So sell ESR, sell Gabriel Jesus, Martinelli's missed time, Odegaard's missed time. Who are your rocks who don't miss games? Gabriel Magalhaes. Zinchenko's missed so much time. Sell him. Because if we're talking about players who are going to be frequently injured, the only one you can count on is Gabriel Magalhaes.
And Declan Rice so far.
And Saka.
Saka.
I
try not to put that name into
the conversation. But lads, all those 3 you've just mentioned, they're all dropping in form a bit. I think they're all exhausted mentally, physically. The whole thing is they need a break. No, they're going to go off to Dubai, I think, after the FA Cup match. But I think Arteta knows his best 11. He probably knows he's got another 3 players that can come in and do a job. But after that, I think he doesn't try. I like Reece Nelson. I think there's a lot going for that guy. I don't think he believes in himself enough, and that could be because Arteta is such a sort of he's not a bully, but he's a sort of a doctrinaire sort of guy. It's my way or the highway, that kind of vibe, And sometimes you got to put an arm around somebody, not be pushing them and bullying them,
So let me retort to your point there, Eltel, in relation to Reece Nelson. There is a kid who has got so much self-belief. Yeah. Now, confidence is a big aspect of when, a lot of footballers, and probably most footballers, work on the basis of confidence. But the players themselves have confidence in their own capability. He's been playing football since he was standing up. And he's been out on loan several times. He's been to major championship cup finals, don't forget. Yeah? So we're not talking about a kid who's, we're not sure on what he's got. We know. We know what he's got. We have seen him excel outside of our club and go to another place and play in a major European Cup final. So nobody can't turn around and say, have we got enough sample data? And then he comes back to the club, and then he comes in, and fleetingly we see again, there's a player that can do things. Maybe we should be seeing more of him. But instead of that, we pay him 100 grand and then we don't play him. And instead we flog the player that we know is a little bit better than him to the point where we risk his injury. We even play him when he is injured. When we've got a guy that we pay 100 grand and we say, we're confident in your ability. You're confident in your ability, but we just don't think you're ready yet.
But Tony, you know, if I ask you the question, name person in your opinion, your 11. You telling me Reece Nelson would be in your starting 11?
I'll tell you who is always number one in my 11, Thomas Partey. Because I'm never going to argue with you about Reece Nelson. Yeah? I'm not going to argue with you about Reece Nelson. He, to me, is a great understudy to Saka. But I'll tell you who does always appear in my 11. Yeah? I don't care who likes Declan Rice. I'm always going to have Thomas Partey. There is not a player in the Premier League capable of playing the way Thomas Partey plays. So for you to suggest it's time to sell Thomas Partey when there isn't a player, forget Onana, forget any player in the league. The only player who stands a chance is Rodri. But there is not a single player who comes close to playing in the way as effectively as Thomas Partey. The man is simply a Rolls Royce. And if you get rid of a Rolls Royce, be prepared, if you really want to win something, to bring another Rolls Royce in. But if you haven't got one, if you're only bringing in BMWs and Audis, forget it. Because I have a Rolls Royce. And although that Rolls Royce may be unable to run 40 games a season, yeah, I'd rather you have the Rolls Royce and play it 30 games a season, managing minutes. And I tell you what that reminds me of, yeah? Sorry to change sports slightly, but there's a guy called LeBron James. He's 40, playing in a young man's game, basketball, where quite simply, you can't play him all the minutes. But I tell you what they do is they say, I tell you what, when he is playing, he's unguardable. No one can stop him. But we can't keep playing him 38 minutes of every game. The game is 38 minutes long. Yeah? So what we'll do is we'll manage his minutes. Yeah? And win, lose or draw, he never plays 38 minutes of a game. And so that is good management of a player who you realize. Let's not forget, you were talking about this earlier, Alex. Yeah, Kevin De Bruyne has won things with his team, but now he's had a serious injury and he's out. Yeah, what you're not bringing into the equation is Kevin De Bruyne is way younger than Thomas Partey. So Thomas Partey is now at an age where he was Mr. Invincible when he was at Atletico Madrid. Never had an injury. Came to Arsenal, injury. And so on the basis of he's been at the club 4 full seasons.
Yeah.
And consider that last season, our best season ever in the Premier League, where we were fighting for the title, Thomas Partey played 40 games. Kevin De Bruyne didn't play 40 in a treble-winning season for Man City.
So are you saying to me that Mikel Arteta doesn't know how to manage Thomas Partey's playing time? Is that what you're saying?
Does he know how to manage players? Because the same argument that I could say about Thomas Partey could be maintained about Bukayo Saka, William Saliba, because they're players who play every minute of every game, and sometimes you think, have you not bought reinforcements to allow you the comfort of being able to rest players when the opportunity rises, especially when you're 3-0 up in a game, and you just think, you know what, now's where I game manage and rest particular players.
This is why I don't believe in the process. Anyway, Prosper.
Yeah.
You anything to say, Prosper?
Yeah, Tony has raised very, very valid points here. You know, like Eltel said earlier, you know, you don't understand what Arteta is doing right now. He's buying players, he's pushing them out. And somebody raised it on the group earlier in the morning. They were talking about, morning or afternoon, they were talking about, okay, why don't we have, somebody asked that question, why don't we have lads coming from the ranks, from the youth team to the senior team? And the answer is simple. They're looking at what their seniors are being done to, like Emil Smith Rowe. Emil Smith Rowe is a legend to me. That boy came in when the team really needed him, including Eddie. Well, there was a time when we were really desperate. The kind of pressure Havertz has never had, the kind of pressure Jesus has never had, and those boys stood up for the team. And they performed. You see? And then tomorrow, when everything is rosy, when there's no pressure, then everybody starts saying they're not good enough. What? I'm like, a player I would rather have in a team is a player that will work under pressure when all odds are against them and they perform. That's a player I'm keeping in a team, not a player who performs like Havertz. He won the Champions League, blah, 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 blah. But did he carry Chelsea? It was Kante who carried Chelsea. You know, he wasn't the player who performed when everything else was down. No, he played in the numbers, just same as the argument that was there between Haaland being the best player in the world and everything. I'm like, he's at the top club where everybody is the cream. He hasn't got to carry the team. The team will deliver whether he is in or not in. Those are the differences we should look at. So for me, Emil Smith Rowe, in any lineup you tell me for Arsenal, he's there. I can't leave him out. You know, Eddie Nketiah too, if I put game time for game time with Jesus, he's more efficient than Jesus. He's there. But the question is, how is Arteta, what kind of system is Arteta playing? Is he playing to the strengths of the players? Because right now, the way Arsenal is playing right now, even if you were to bring prime Thierry Henry in that team, he can't score as many goals because Thierry Henry wanted to run with the defenders. He was using his pace. But if you want to cluster everybody in the box and expect Thierry Henry to play, he won't play because he needs to run with the ball. You see? And that's the same conundrum we find ourselves in with Martinelli. He wants to run towards players. You know, he uses his pace. But if there's no space to run to, what does he do with the ball? You see? Eddie the same. Eddie is all about pace. One-on-one with a center forward or two center forwards who are slow, he'll beat them. But has he got the space? Is the ball coming to him early enough for him to do that? No. You see? So he seems useless and lost in the pitch. Why? Because of the manager. And that's why we're saying performances of players have gone down. Eltel brought that up. It's not the players. For me, it's the manager. When Arteta just came, remember the first games, he came in and won silverware against Man City.
Yeah.
Then he had that inferiority complex where young teams, so let's sit back and then we catch them on a counter-attack. It really used to work because the kind of players we have are pace-oriented, and we used to win games. You would be confident Arsenal scored one and we're going to win this game because Arsenal wasn't as reckless as it is right now. But right now, we think we are prime Barcelona, we can hold, and every time they get the ball away from that, us whilst we're on top, there are several games we can look at. There's that Salah goal, which Odegaard, for some strange reason, we lead in a game. We're very comfortable. He tries to make an expensive pass. For what reason? We are not under pressure. Let them chase the ball. Play it around. He tries to make an expensive pass. The ball is got from us. One long ball to Salah, it's 1-1. Why cause ourselves all that pressure? So that's all on the manager for me. Because you can't have Aubameyang, a good scorer who just goes numb. Lacazette, a decent goal scorer who just goes numb. Now Jesus has gone numb. Eddie has gone numb. So are all these players bad players? Then we'll have to look at, okay, what's the problem now? It's the manager. For me, it's the manager. Every other problem we have at Arsenal is the manager.
Oh, Prosper. Arteta, are there big questions to be asked of Mikel Arteta's tactics? Or is it just the players just gone off form? Tell?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's the manager. Yes, he's playing players too much, and they're looking tired and whatever. But I think he's boxed himself into a corner with this press. All that happens is we press so slowly because I think we're telling them number one job, don't lose the ball. So we recirculate. If you watch, when a player has a chance of a forward pass, he often doesn't do it because it's risky, one of our players, and he'll play a sideways pass so that we have ball retention. And I think that's what's happened. Some people have water retention. Arteta's got ball retention.
That's
So
a good
can
one.
I ask LTL which player you're referring to with that, and that comment about sideways and not forward enough?
Well, actually, it's most of them. It's actually most of the players. When you think you were talking about Partey and singing his praises earlier, now Partey doesn't like the sideways pass. Partey likes that 35, 40-yard pass into space for players to run onto. Right? That's his forte. That's what he brings to the party. Thomas Partey. Sorry, I'm mucking about with words here. But what we're seeing is a manager who can't see the wood for the trees, unfortunately. And I'm not saying he's a bad manager, because when he first came in, he handled a lot of very tricky players very, very well. He squeezed the best out of Oba and so on. But now this slow build-up, don't lose the ball at any cost, And then by the time we get the ball up to the opposition penalty area, it's full. There's about 20 players, if you include both clubs, all inhabiting. Well, I used to say when I was up in the West Stand, if those players were trees and they didn't even move, you'd still have trouble getting the ball into the net from a shot, because you're probably going to bounce off a tree. And remember, these players are moving, so it's unfortunately he's painted himself into a corner, metaphorically. And I really think if we get down to brass tacks, he needs an experienced, wise head as an assistant manager who stands up to him and says, you've got to slice this a different way, because every decent team in the EPL has worked you out.
Tony.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely bang on, LTL. Saw me applauding that. That's exactly my point. Is you basically have one player capable of dissecting a defense, which is Thomas Partey, which is why we were so successful. So successful last year. Because to me, with Thomas Partey in the middle of the park, he's doing things, creating opportunities ahead of players coming back, returning into a defensive shape. You could play Odegaard way further upfield, because Thomas Partey is essentially telling you, don't come back here. This is my area. You go up. I'm going to feed you the ball into an area where you now just have to turn and find the open option. Yeah? Now, I wanted to make a point and I've lost myself a little bit. This is my point here. Now, what we have seen with Arsenal now is one-dimensional football. Yeah, we can't change the way we play. Bukayo Saka, you know what he's gonna do. Yeah, and for me, the problem is your striker is too readable. Gabriel Jesus, quite simply, is going to be back there in midfield somewhere. Yeah, he's not a proper striker. He's not going to be your point man, and you can't put a crossing onto his head. And God bless him, Eddie Nketiah is a good player, but he also lacks the speed and the size to challenge your centre backs. Yeah, because you've either got to have some speed like an Andy Cole or Dwight York in amongst the trees to be able to sprint into space and do something different, which is what Aubameyang was really good at doing. Yeah. Or you've actually got to have physical size, like Ivan Toney, like Giroud, like Solanke, like Ollie Watkins. Yeah. Have you noticed a pattern about all those strikers? Size. Size matters. Yeah, size matters. 5'9" striker with fleet feet is good. It's nice, but when you work out where you want to defend against that striker, his physicality then doesn't give you a problem, and that's the problem with Arsenal. We don't have the physicality to be able to change a game, which is why loads of people at Arsenal were not happy with Olivier Giroud. And to me, he was one of the best players we ever had. The man's a legend to me. World Cup winner, literally won everything. Yeah. You know, he's in it tail end of his career, but France still sees the value in him playing. And I look at him playing in Italy, and I'm like, that guy still does a job.
Even in goal.
No, but Tony makes a good point that Olivier Giroud, he must be knocking on the door of 40 in a year or two, but he is still the point man. He is still 6'3" or 4. You could knock it up to him. He'll lay it off, and he's got a lot of football intelligence, so he doesn't need the pace of a youngster. But of course, Arteta, do you know what Arteta reminds me of, Alex? You know, you and I have worked in schools as head teachers. He reminds me of a head who's determined to go a certain way and have the school running a certain way. And when it all goes wrong, they haven't got the humility or the wherewithal to say, do you know what? We're going to have to slice this one a different way. You know, okay, what I said in the past, I'm sorry, we're going to have to move it a different way. All he's got to do, I put on Cannon Fodder your WhatsApp thing, a thing from a few years ago, and it showed some of our way of playing. It showed people like Partey, as we were saying with Tony, knocking the ball long into the feet of forwards, running forward with a load of green grass around them, so they weren't trying to get through, thread the eye of a needle. And there was another one, and this has happened to us a lot, and doesn't get even near the halfway line, but they play a 40-yard lofted pass to your tall centre forward who's inhabiting the D outside the penalty area, right? That fella gets up in the air. He's probably not going to head the ball straight into the net from there, but he's going to cause consternation. You're going to have two defenders trying to stop him, and they couldn't do that with Giroud. He's very good in the air, timed his jumps and everything. And his knockdowns suddenly find a defence in sort of disarray. Then you got your Eddie, then you got your Jesus, and then you got all the other guys. But at the moment, he won't play that. He won't play these long, speculative, lofted balls. Well, fair enough, we haven't got a tall guy up there. But he won't play the long pass. And it's all this, what they call it, the horseshoe. You get outside the other team's penalty area, and it just goes round and round and round. And as Tony said, when Saka gets the ball, he's completely lumbered because he's got at least 2, maybe 3 players on him. So he passes it back to Ødegaard, and they try and do what we used to call a wall pass, you know, quick one touch, get through. But when there's so many defenders there, you know, it's not going to happen. Listen, a fella once gave me this book. It was the collected articles of Herbert Chapman, our great manager back in the day. And it was from, like, he used to write in the Daily Express. And I read this book. It's really interesting. I'm sure it's well out of print, but absolutely fascinating. And one of the things Herbert Chapman said that struck me was this: you can have the ball too much. You can have this ball retention, water retention, whatever you want to call it, too much. And what we did in the final against Chelsea, where Ober played brilliantly, was we let Chelsea come on to us, right? Therefore, you've got, I forget his name now, was it Azpilicueta? You've got suddenly a ball is knocked over the top, and Azpilicueta panics because he's got Aubameyang at full flight, bearing down on him. He wrong foots him and scores. That's what happens when you sucker the other team into you. Sucker them in. I noticed Tony saying pugilist boy. Well, sometimes if he's a boxer, sometimes in boxing you put your arms up, you let the other bloke rope a dope or whatever you call it. George Foreman let him punch himself out and then go for the sucker punch. It's another way of doing it, and Arteta isn't looking for Plan B.
But Tel, you're talking about the videos you put in the WhatsApp group, and you see the likes of Thierry Henry running into space.
Yeah,
that wouldn't happen against West Ham. West Ham played with a low block. Fulham played with a low block.
They only put, but when West Ham scored that goal, right, they were suddenly, that's the point at which their team has moved forwards towards even their defenders are near the halfway line. That's the point where you rob them of the ball and somebody hits a long Thomas Partey type ball, or Lee Dixon in the past, long ball up into space for your, I mean, Eddie Nketiah, I often say he's not the world's greatest, but he's fast. Eddie is fast. And they say the defenders hate speedy players because once he's gone past you, you're never going to get near him. But we're not using their pace.
Yeah. So again, going on the back of what El Teller said, you know, pace kills, yeah. And again, this is another blur on Arteta. The paciest player in our team by a country mile to me is Gabriel Martinelli.
Exactly.
Because I've seen too many breakaway goals where he's 1-on-1 or 1-on-2 against defenders where he gets ahead and there's not a chance in hell that they catch him. If you put Nketiah in that situation, the defense will catch him.
But Martinelli.
Yeah? If you give Eddie the ball at the halfway line and put every other defender on the halfway line and say, go score a goal, Eddie will cut back because he doesn't have the pace to play the ball and run all the way to the goal and not get caught. The one player I could rely on to do that is Gabriel Martinelli.
Tony, two things about Gabriel Martinelli, right, which is agreeing with you. Listen to this. Back in Brazil, he was a star at this game called futsal. Have you seen that one? Futsal. It's a seven-a-side or something like that, and they play in a small space, so you've got defenders climbing all over you. And this guy can escape if people are really, if you notice when he's on the wing, no defender gets really close to him. They're about two yards off him because they know if they get next to him, he's gone. He's gone. He's got that futsal skill. Also, Arteta is quoted as saying that Gabriel Martinelli, despite he's about 5'9" or 10, but he's actually the best timer of running into space and heading the ball that our club has. So why we don't try him as our number 9, as our centre forward, I don't know. Yeah,
I did say that actually. I said the same thing yesterday. Try him in that position there.
And there are, and the thing is, you don't have to play him as your striker, but all you need to do is we can fit situation football where a winger becomes a striker. Yeah. Because you already play your number 9, Gabriel Jesus, as a deep lying midfielder at points.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just need to be able to create situations where he comes in in a different arc. And this is again the problem with Arteta ball. The two wingers are told hang out on the touchline.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when the ball comes down, they're there. I had to actually show the graphic. They're there on your touch lines. Yeah. Now, what you don't
have you got
ever
the
see
graphic,
with
Tony?
Arteta ball is
have you got the graphic?
Yeah.
Can you share it? Yeah.
No. Sorry, I showed it on
right. Okay.
The one-on-one channel.
Yeah.
You don't ever put Saka and go for a situation. I want you to move to the left and use your left foot against that player. You know, why not? Why don't we? Because you have a player in the middle who you can rotate on left or right in Gabriel Jesus. So effectively, you could say, I tell you what, at a particular point in the game, we're going to invert. We're going to
said the same thing, Tony, man.
Arteta is a man who's constantly looking for an overload, which is why he plays the inverted fullback roles. So he's trying to create opportunities where he's got more players in attack than he has in defense. But what he's not doing is going invert not only the back of the field, but invert the front of the field. Because I can create an overload of my speedster not being hugging the top, the touchline, but running right against the centre back who hasn't got the pace to stay with him.
So here's a question for you, Tony. You know, because everyone's mentioned the players that we have at Arsenal. So is Mikel Arteta right? We don't need to go to the market in January because we have the players.
No.
No.
We don't have a number 9 striker right now at the club.
Yeah, but you
as
could
much
use
as
Kai
I
Havertz.
like, as much as I like Nketiah, I do like him as a player. I don't feel he's the plan B that we need, because there are games you need a plan B. You know, Ian Wright and Kevin Campbell was different to Ian Wright and Alan Smith. Aubameyang, Bergkamp and Henry was different to Bergkamp and Anelka. You know, you have to understand the skills of your players and play to their strengths. And sometimes a player needs to be used in a slightly different role to take on. And it's brilliant that it was dropped in the group, Thierry Henry explaining that you need to run differently for Freddie than the way you run for Perez. Yeah. And that's what the manager, whose job it is to look at the metrics, to look at the lines of attack, to go, right, you need to do this in this situation, and show the game video footage to say, look, if you had done this, it would have worked different. And we're going to practice that for the next 10 plays in training, so you can see and develop a strategy that works best. You know, we don't see enough of fullback overlaps. Last season, we saw Ben White tearing up fullback overlaps. Where's a fullback overlap gone? Arteta's kind of gone, I'll tell you what, boys, we're going to improve our play, but I'm going to take away this key element of how we approach, which is a fullback overlap. Ben White overlapping Bukayo Saka, running around his fullback, and then if he's not caught a ball in the channel to the side of the fullback, he's going to come in. So you can play the ball inside the fullback, because then Ben will find himself inside the box against the centre-back coming in, which now frees the centres forward. It's gone. And we don't even have an option like that at left side.
Don't get me going on that. Prosper, you want to say something? Kai Havertz as a potential target man.
There's a lot of very important points that have been raised here. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Elton. I mean, before the show began, I had a lot of things going on in my head, and I'm forgetting a few points. I guess I'm getting gray now. But the first thing that I was looking at, I was talking about, hello, why all this fuss about modern football? Football is still football. It's 11 players against 11 players. Why can't we go back to the old 4-4-2 formation where we have a diamond like shape in the midfield? Because as is right now, that's what we need. Martinelli, left midfielder, left wing. Saka, right wing. Odegaard right behind Jesus. Then Rice back there in Partey's position. Let's just go back to the basic football and let's see how it goes. Because right now, as Tony was saying, we're playing congest the 18-yard box. For what reason? I mean, look at how Arsenal has always played soccer. we've always had very pacey strikers. Edin Ketia, much as he's not that pacey, but he's pacey enough to run, to make centre backs pant for their breath. And when I look at Edin Ketia, I look at Jermaine Defoe. Sorry to bring in Jermaine Defoe, but Jermaine Defoe is kind of Edin Ketia. You won't find him in a clustered or Saviola. You remember Saviola?
Yeah.
You won't find him in a clustered box, but just bang the ball there and let him do the running, and you see what he will do to defenders. So you have to understand your players quite well. Okay, who does Edin Ketia play well with? Edin Ketia won't play well with Havertz. Havertz is too slow to read the movement and pass the ball. Put Emil Smith-Rowe in the game. Let Edin Ketia play with Emil Smith-Rowe. You watch football. You see? But where you have a fixed starting 11, even when you see your opposition, okay, this opposition is quite strong in this, it's quite strong in that. You're not that fluid, you're not that dynamic, you don't want to change. You always have a fixed. Havertz is always there. When it's 75 minutes, the first casualty to be substituted at times is the best player on the pitch. Martinelli is the first to go out. You see? And at times you find Saka is not even performing, but Martinelli will always be the first victim to go out of the pitch. Then Tony raised the point again on, and Elton raised the point again on how players are supposed to play. When Martinelli just came in, I remember the game we played against Chelsea when N'Golo Kante had to literally fall on the ground because he was made to run by Martinelli. He was a young boy, but he made that defense run and he scored a goal. First game. And that was typical of Martinelli. And I was like, okay, he's going to play the Thierry Henry role. Finally, we've got a player who can run with the ball like Henry. Then what happens now? Xhaka is told to push forward. So Martinelli was told never cut in, because when he came in, he would cut in and take a shot on goal. But because we had to put Xhaka to push in, Martinelli was forced to be going wide. Now, when he goes wide, he's not as effective because there's no target, there's no big center forward in the box to cross the high balls in and to knock headers in, like the Van Persies would do and everyone, or Adebayo would do, or Giroud would do. We don't have that kind of player. So even if he goes wide, he crosses the ball. Who is he crossing it to? You see? So we have in all those gaps that we have in it. And then you have Xhaka here. Now it's who is coming in. Rice is told to come in. So Martinelli can't cut in, And we know he's a right-footed player, so he's more efficient when he cuts in. But we want him to always go wide and to make a nuisance of himself. So every time now, the managers are telling him, okay, if you want to mark Martinelli, just have two-on-one on him, and he's done. He'll pass the ball back. Same thing as Saka, 2-on-1 on him, he's done. He'll pass the ball back. It will go to Saliba, and then it will go to Gabriel, who pretend to be going left. Then he'll take it back right. And it's a whole thing that we were doing last season, this season, start of the season. And I was like, if we're going to play like this, trust me, we're going to end up number 4, number 5 come the end of the season. And everybody was like, you're negative. I'm like, look at how we're playing. We're not playing as if we're evolving the game. We actually retrogressing. We're going back. And right now, we don't have a system. We don't have a first 11 that we can talk about. Okay, this is an efficient, not first 11 by favoritism. Honestly speaking, there are times when you just see this player is playing because he's the manager's kitty boy. A boy he can always say, this is my boy. The guy who says yes to him every time gets the first starting 11. So people like Emil Smith-Rowe who would be like, okay, I think I don't have to pass here. Let me try dribble into the box. Arteta doesn't want that kind of play. You see? So he'll keep him on the bench. But sometimes you need to use your initiative. You need to look at how we used to play even way back, 2004, 2005, somewhere there, 2003, 2004, when we had Wiltord, Lundberg. You could, honestly speaking, till today, I couldn't differentiate the difference in quality between Wiltord and Lundberg. And I was like, okay, if Arteta is getting jammed up with a few players that we have, under quality players, how would he have played that generation of talent and managed to keep them on the bench? Because how do you keep Wiltord on the bench for Lundberg? So Arteta had, Wenger had to pick his games well. Okay, this is a physical game. It needs Wilton. This is a more skill game. I need Lumberg who can trickle through the defense. And that's the kind of play. And if you look at then, we had players like Chamak. Chamak wasn't a very talented player, but Wenger found a way of making him effective. You see? And trust me, you bring Chamak into this team today, he would look like a star because, we don't have a tall guy, a target man in the box, So I'm looking, okay, Almighty Bednar, Chamak, those players would look like stars in this team.
Oh, don't even let me have to mention the greatest, Emmanuel Adebayor.
Oh,
Exactly. We used to bench players then, players that were very talented. Remember that young star Brazilian Denilson, defending midfield. That boy failed to play because there was so much talent, and then we were like, no, this one. But I look at this team today and I'm like, wow, these guys would really outwork in this team and they would really be stars because it's all crazy how we handling the transfers. It's all crazy how we handling our players, how we managing them. As Tony was saying, we bought Partey because he's got that eye, that Pirlo eye. He can pass the long ball. And Rice can do that as well. They can take shots from range. Ever since Partey came to the club, how many shots have we taken from range? That it goes back to the point Elter was saying, if you have so many logs in the 18-yard box, who shoots the long ball? But that's the reason why we have Partey and Rice. Those guys can take shots from range. And you don't have to be that predictable. Sometimes take shots from range, outside the 18-yard box, and everybody's amused. They are okay, it's a goal. You see? But we don't have all that dynamicness because Arteta wants football to be played in a video game manner. And that can't happen. Football is football.
Prosper, quick question to you before I go into a live chat. Would you go into the transfer window and buy a player? And what kind of player?
Yes, definitely we need a player. I've just forgotten this defending midfielder who was on loan from a French small club, but he really impressed me on several games. That's why he played Arsenal. He really muscled that midfield, and that midfield there was Partey, there was everyone there. But he muscled. I don't know. I think he was with Wolves, but he just came for loan.
Who's that? Is it? He plays in the French league.
Yes, he plays in the French league, a very small club, but that boy really played well. And I was like, if we need a defending midfielder, let's go for this boy. He won't cost us much, but he will do the job. He really bossed our midfield. We really struggled with him. There was that boy. And then for center forward, anyone big, Tony, just different dimension from Jesus, and for me, Jesus and Eddie Nketiah, one player, It's like Dwight York and Andy Cole, Manchester United, small players, nimble. You need someone big, you see?
Which is why they bought Teddy Sheringham.
Exactly, And if you remember very well, I always give these examples because I've watched the game for a long, long time, And for me, soccer is not that I'm an Arsenal, so I only watch Arsenal games. I watch any kind of league. I would watch the Bundesliga when we used to have the Giovanni Elber from Brazil as a center forward. That's the Eddie Nketiah type. That's the Jesus type. But you need tall guys, be the Kolarov type. You need those players because when you can't pass the ball into the box, you need somebody to head the ball, pass high balls, let them knock in headers. So for me, in the transfer, I think let's go for a totally different dimension because I know we have wing backs that can really cross sweet balls in there. The Japanese guy can cross sweet balls. Zinchenko can cross sweet balls, but we haven't used that. Tierney also could do the same. But we look at those players like they're not useful because why? Because we don't have a different style of play. Okay, guys, when it's tough, what are we gonna do? We're gonna cross in long balls and let's try to get headers into the ball. So that's where if we have a tall center forward, big center forward, and we can have Kai Havertz there, it would make a bit of confusion. Who who the centre backs will mark because there are two tall guys there as targets. But we don't have that. So what do we do now? We still play the same old mediocre tiki-taka, which is not helping, you know.
Well, Arteta said that literally they're not going to be buying any players in January, so there's going to be much more of the same coming January.
Exactly. And let me just finish this point, Tony. I know you want to talk. Yeah, exactly. And whose fault is that? When I have an issue with Havertz, I don't have an issue with Havertz as a player. I have an issue with Havertz as what was the necessity of buying Havertz? Because with or without Havertz, Arsenal would have been where it is today with the players we have on bench for Havertz's position. But if we had a centre forward for that money, a reputable centre forward, big guy, where would Arsenal be right now? Honestly speaking, Havertz wasn't the necessity we needed for that money. So we spent good money on a player we didn't need. Now we don't have the money to buy the player we need. So that's all on the manager.
Well, I think we have the money, but it's just the football fair play rules, and as well with the player, the striker at Brentford, Brian Mbeumo, who's out injured. They're not going to sell Ivan Toney. They will not sell Ivan Toney. But anyway, sorry, Tony, you want to say something?
Yeah. So again, going on the back of what Prosper has said, and in line with what we've been talking about in terms of style of play. You know, one thing that I was kind of really shouting at the TV in the West Ham game, I think it was when you have the amount of domination of the football, and you're needing to change the game, you've got a guy on your screen, Alex, that was really good at this, and it always reminds me of there's a goal against Everton that the other fella, the centre back, scored.
Oh, right.
Remember,
Okay.
Bold to Adams scores.
Yeah.
Left foot shot. The centre back going forward.
That's
and
a good shout.
making an extra player.
That's a good shout.
The big guy at the back, turning it into the big man up front. Yeah. And when you're looking at the game, and I'm like, you've got to now send you're desperate for a goal. You need to put your centre back as your centre forward, as your point man.
Yeah.
And at no point, you know what? At some points you just think, okay, game's on the line, got a corner, send the goalkeeper. Mikel Arteta does not seem to understand the concept of I'm gonna risk it because I'm already gonna lose. So I might as well take my centre back because I'm playing Declan Rice. Don't forget. And Declan Rice wasn't going. No one said, "Oh, Declan, go up top," because you're a big guy, you're a body. Get yourself up top. Yeah, get something different when you're in desperate situations. These are things that you should have. You should have. Tried and gone. You know what? We're a goal down. FA Cup final, Champions League final. We need a goal. We're gonna send the centre back up. And it's now his job to bully their centre back and bring in a player with our nippy wingers.
Tony, you know what? In the Fulham game, I saw this look on Mikel Arteta's face, like I don't know what to do. I'm not sure what to do.
Me too.
I was thinking, I've seen that look before. And one of the last games I went to the Emirates was the game when we played against Olympiacos and we lost against them. And I was looking at Arteta and he had this look on his face like, I don't know what to do. And that same look, I saw it against Fulham. I don't know what to do. I have no answer. So,
but Alex, that's because he can't think outside the box. He's playing. He's managing team. Huh?
No, go on, Tony. Go on.
I was going to say he's playing it like a chess piece game. Everybody's told you're a bishop, you can only move here. You're a pawn, you can only do that. And he's given them all. It's too predefined. He's got to think outside the box.
But Tel, he's 4 years. He's 4 years in the job, Tel.
I know, but you see, I think people do that. I've done this. I'll tell you a quick story. Right, all them years of teaching, right, and I'm teaching these kids. They're about 14, 15, and we're doing African drumming. We're doing djembe drumming, and they were composing a piece. So we get one rhythm going. Great. Let's try and find a contrasting rhythm, see how it sits on top. So we'd got to 4 rhythms, okay, all happening at the same time. Sounds great. And this kid, I'll never forget, his name's Tommy. He says to me, I've got another one we could add. And I'm thinking, no. 5 rhythms is the texture's too thick. It becomes a mess. And he looked at me and I thought, I shouldn't say that to him, because who's to say I'm right and he's wrong? So anyway, I said, go on then, Tommy. Let's add your rhythm and we see if it works, right? And all my years of experience told me it wouldn't work. And do you know what happened? It worked. And I call it the Tommy effect. If he tunes in, he'll probably recognize it. But this kid, like, he proved to me that I didn't know everything. You know, you're thinking, I've done this 1,000 times. I know what I'm doing. I'm experienced. But always have the humility. But when somebody says there's another way of doing this, let them have their head. And you know what? Sometimes you learn.
But that's why I disagree with you, because you said on many occasions that he needs a strong number 2.
Yeah.
It only works if your mind is open to listen to somebody else's opinion. Michael Arteta, he's not open to that. So it's never going to work, is it? It's never going to work.
That's why Steve Round went. Did you notice he got rid of Steve Round?
Yeah.
And now he's got that Albert Stuyvenberg, who looks, he gives him like a sheepish little sycophantic look, as if to say, I'm not arguing with you. He needs a fella. I'm not saying you argue with him on the touchline, but when the players have gone out the dressing room, thrash it out. Thrash the damn thing out and say to him, look, this isn't, there's another way of doing this, man. And, you know, if you don't do that, you're going to repeat, wash and repeat. It's the same thing. And we've all seen it. Tony's mentioned it. Prosper's mentioned it. You've mentioned it. Every Arsenal fan you meet in the street or around the game, they're all saying he needs a big man up front. He needs to play the ball quicker. This slow press is not working. But whatever it is about him, he's stuck in a corner, in a box, and he can't get out of it.
But what about what Tony said? You know, your centre back, put him up front as a target.
Oh yeah,
man. These guys
think outside the box.
Yeah,
think outside the box. That's what you. Was it Mick Hartford or something? There was a few players like that. There was one for Chelsea as well, and he was quite a good centre forward. But they made him a centre back. But every now and again, when they were chasing a goal, he played up front, and he looked wonderful. Saliba, who can beat Saliba in the air? I haven't met anybody. Get him up there occasionally. You know, he's got the brute force. He can out jump anybody. He's a massive guy. And even if he doesn't get it in the net, there's a good chance that he'll create so much consternation. He'll create a knockdown and everything is open again. But you have to think outside the box.
Tony, where are we going with Mikel Arteta, man? I know there's all this stuff about the process. Believe in the process, support the process. Tony, man, the process. I don't know, man.
I mean, hopefully, Alex, he's watching our show, so you know. If you are, Mikel, then please, in your next press conference, do give Cannon Fodder a shout out for inspiring you with words of wisdom. I mean, we're just supporters.
Yeah.
None of us proclaim to be football experts, but you know, you get a good pay to do that job which we are doing, which is analysing football. And all we can do is hope that he listens, because he's not going to be sacked. He's nowhere near that.
Exactly.
And he doesn't deserve to be sacked. However, he does need somebody up him. And it's a good point you make, Eltel, about Steve Round being the voice that was against what some of Arteta was doing, and now he's no longer in the job. You know, somebody somewhere, I hope, has got to be able to turn around and say, some of your situational football needs to be revisited and changed, because you are gonna slump out of a job because of your firmness to staying in one style of football. It has to change. It has to change somewhere along the line. If you're not gonna go out and buy the players necessary to enforce those changes, then you need to do something with the players you have. And I firmly believe he has good enough players. I've seen enough sample work.
Oh, yeah.
You know, a close run last year and a fairly good start to the season. But we're now at mission critical time. You know, we get to that point where we're within touching distance, and this is where he needs to reinvent something that goes, actually, now is the critical time where I need to make some kind of change. And I remember this point last year where Gabriel Jesus wasn't playing at this time last year. We only had Eddie. And I was like, oh my God, how many points ahead were we of Man City at the time? And I was like, oh, we have to buy a striker. Please, just for the last 6 months of the season. If we don't, we will pay the penalty at the end of the season and go, if only.
And where are we now? At that point, thinking, if only.
Exactly.
Guys, I've got to shoot out. I'm getting a call from the other room. Tea's on the table.
Lovely Tel.
Nice seeing you all, guys.
Nice one, Tel. Take care, Tel.
Take care, Tel.
Cheers.
All right, lads. Cheers.
So, you know, that's my segue. Let me go into the live chat for...
just to add on what Tony said, when we're talking about the transfer season, the transfer period, you remember when, I like to refer to other teams because I learn a lot from what's happening elsewhere. If there's something I praise Alex Ferguson for, it's his decision making. When the team is not good, he didn't care where you came from, whether it's a rival or anything. If he needed a Berbatov in the middle of the season and he's seen, I need a center forward, you go and buy Berbatov. There was a time Manu was chasing the league, and he knew Manu is going to win the league. He didn't have a center forward. He got Henrik Larsson back from retirement, the ex-Barcelona player, back from retirement, and brought him to Manchester United just to get him across that line. You see? So there are times when you have to go beyond yourselves. Forget about your pride, forget about your ego as a club. Go beyond yourself. You know?
But Prosper, do you not believe these players are good enough to win the Premier League?
These players are good enough to win the Premier League. And that's why I came in today on the group. After a long time of absence, I was like, this is the Fulham, West Ham and Fulham game is not a loss to me. Those are the wake-up calls you really need at the right time to say, look, yes, we're good, but we're not good enough. We need a little bit extra to cross the line. And this is the time. We have the time to buy, not like, oh, it's already outside the transfer period, blah, 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 all those stories we hear. So it also goes back to the point I was trying to raise. Why are we not buying in the transfer? Is it because of financial fair play, or is it because it's always been the Kroenke plan to use Arteta as their guinea piggy for the money? Because all I see is that, why did we spend a lot of money to get into top 4 and play the Champions League only to participate and not win? Because if they don't buy right now, all they're telling me is that they just want the money for the numbers. They're not interested in the trophies, because you can't spend that much last season and the previous season. And then when you get up there, you don't want to challenge when we're so close. You know, the first team is not like 10 points ahead of us now. We're so close to it. Why can't you spend a bit more money, 150 million, just for a center forward and a defending midfielder? And let's see how it goes from here. You see, but if they can't spend that money right now, then all it will tell me is that, okay, they wanted an inexperienced manager so that if it fails, we use the process. So we're still in the process of building the team, and years are going. Whilst they're making that money, because we're able to win the Champions League, we're able to win the Premier League. So all we need is 2 players, minimum of 2 players. And if we can't buy them now, then it tells me the Kroenke agenda is not to win anything. You see?
Sorry, Alex, can I just add to what Prosper is saying, because I truly believe what he's just said is accurate. You know, the scenario of Zinchenko is the most telling of those situations, because there you have a player who you know his infallibilities, you know what he's just not good at.
Yeah.
Yet you choose. You have a choice. You could bring back a player who's a very good left back and very serviceable as an attacking left back. And he's your player. You don't have to pay a penny. But you choose to stand on your ledge and say, nah, I'm sticking with this.
But, you know, like I think you've just gone away for a moment, Tony. I said to LTL that he's 4 seasons now into the job. Not learning the lesson, Tony. He's not learning the lesson. Is he constrained by the people above him? Is he stubborn? What is it? What is it?
They're in a deal. They're all in a deal together, because if I have my superiors, if you're my boss, and you expect so much from me, I can't be making the silly mistakes Arteta is. I'm not a professional. Tony said it. We're not professionals. But we can see these mistakes from last season. We can see the wrong buys when we need the right buys. We've struggled with the centre forward position. That was the first priority in the off-season. Before we started the league, we didn't do anything. And right now, we're not doing anything. Why aren't we doing anything? We're not professionals, but we can see it. So for me, I think they're all in it. Arteta is always guaranteed you keep in your job. Don't worry. There's no pressure on you. Do whatever you want to do. If we fail to win any trophy, we're going to say he's inexperienced. We're still in the process of changing the team, blah, 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 blah. That's all I'm seeing here.
Just going through some of the comments in the live chat, and Emerson says, spot on, Tony, with your comments. And John Laguna says, Emerson, mate, I believe if you're good enough, you are old enough. Boyd says, Saka, no, he is nursing a secret injury already. Is he injured? Is it
very possible?
Yeah, I mean, look, what you've got to remember is there's a kid who's getting regularly hacked. So it wouldn't be a surprise if he's got some knock. But that's not unusual for a professional footballer. You know, you nurse knocks through week to week. You know, it's like a boxer. If you're a boxer, you will get concussed every week, because your training, your sport is an active impact sport. Football is an active impact sport. Yeah. And it requires you to take knocks regularly. You know, if you played the game, you must have had at some point, you come off the pitch and you know something's hurting and you have to soak it in hot water and salts and you do whatever is necessary. I'm a regular hot bath, magnesium salts guy. Yeah, that's why we now have the ice chamber. So these guys are coming out off a training and the ice chamber, boom. And then you've got the cryogenic chamber and you've got all these different technologies now which are helping players get through week to week. So they're carrying knocks. That's just part and parcel of being a professional footballer. You know, they get taped up and they know, right, okay, we've got to, you know, be easy on this injury for weeks and weeks until hopefully it heals. You know, I've had that with a thumb on my left finger. I jabbed and I jarred my thumb. It was badly injured, so I had to retape it, and that's allowed to be protected while I punch. And now the thumb is fine. So injuries are a regular of football. We have to understand that. Anyone who played football at Sunday League level, any level, will realize you never go through a season without picking up some kind of injury and nursing yourself through it. But Saka is obviously, you know, one that is being targeted by teams and he's on the receiving end of heavy blows week in and week out. And it wouldn't be a surprise if he's got a knock that they keep nursing week in and week out. I would imagine he's one of the first players gets his ankle strapped on a Saturday morning just before they kick off.
But you know, I was listening to a podcast yesterday. I'm not going to mention the name of the podcast, and I was saying the problem with our players, namely your Bukayo Sakas, your Erdegaards, your Martin, they hold on to the ball too long, which invites the tackle and the free kick. If they were more just like free flowing, like we said earlier in the show, again 1-2 touches, passing the ball, it wouldn't give any opportunity for Bukayo Saka to be double teamed, Martinelli to be double teamed. But it seems like our players like to hog on to the ball too long. And just one other thing, Tony, that is it Reece Nelson, we spoke about him. Is it down to Mikel Arteta being so stubborn and having his favourites? Because again, I'm looking at Bukayo Saka. We've spoken about Reece Nelson so many times in the past before. Surely he should be the competition for that position on the right. And if he is, why are we not seeing a lot more of him? Why are we not seeing a lot more of Reece Nelson?
It's a quandary to me. It doesn't. It you know what you never see in a game is situational football. Again, a flaw of Arteta where he goes, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to move Saka over to the left. I'm going to bring Reece Nelson on the right. And now I'm going to overload their back four with 5 strikers. So all these things we're looking at, we're like, well, try this and try that. And, let there be total football. Because we know, we've seen total football from the 1970s. The Dutch were masters at it. The forward would be up at the top. And when the fullback would be up the top. When the fullback's at the top, everybody just rotated around. It's not rocket science. It is science. There is a lot of science in it, but there are concepts of football which are universal to every manager. And we can turn around, we can look at De Zerbi and we can go, that guy knows football. We can look at Ange Postecoglou and go, that guy knows football. He has his team working in a specific way. He's getting a tune out of the players that were doing nothing. And I need you to fulfill a function in the team. So we all had a laugh last season because nobody could get a song out of Richarlison. Well, guess who's having a tune out of him now?
Jeremy. Good evening, Walid. Walid says, youth of today is Arsenal. In God we trust. Tony, what's the point of having a roller on your drive if you got no wheels?
So let me address that to John, because he's already put the previous comment that you put up that Thomas Partey is our best player by far. What is the point of taking your best player by far, who played 40 games last season, 40, more than Kevin De Bruyne, who was in a triple winning season? He played more games. Yeah. What's the point of taking that player who is easily the number 1 player on the team and going, I tell you what, I'm replacing the roller with a Fiat.
I love Fiats.
Yeah. I'm bringing in a Skoda. The Skoda is always on the pitch. I don't want the Rolls Royce. Yeah. And again, look at my analogy a little bit earlier. LeBron James. He's a Rolls Royce of a player. The LA Lakers just won the in-season tournament. Yeah. They just won the first ever NBA in-season tournament. Because why? The Lakers chose to hold back your main man, the unstoppable object, LeBron James, and say, we're going to hold back, win, lose, or draw. We're just going to manage his minutes so that when we need him most, he can come in and kill the game for you. He can come in and be that guy that we know he is. Yeah. And I'm just saying, if he could play 40 games last season, what's stopping him playing 40 games this season? The manager.
Yeah. Prosper, you want to say something?
Just to add on Tony's point, for Partey, I'm all in with Tony. I mean, I don't want Partey to play 30, 40 games this season because I just want Partey to come in. You've got 5 games left to go at the end of the season. You need reliable players. Probably you are tied on points. You're tied on points with your opponent, probably Liverpool or Man City, and you're up there. You need to win games, probably the last 3 of your games, and Partey is available. I know we're going to win the league. You know, at the times you don't need the player to be there the whole time, but you just need reliable player when the game has reached a point where you really need that experience in the squad. You really need those players that can make you deliver, and Partey will be there. So even if he plays the last 5 or last 8 games of the season, but if he will make, those games will define the end of our season, whether we win the league or the Champions League, I would rather have Partey in the squad than any other Jim and Jack they can go and pick up from there, because we already know Arteta is not good at buying players. We already know we have that. So I can't take that risk. If he wants to sell Partey, let him sell him at the end of the season. But right now, let him keep him. And if he recovers, then he will reconsider his, I want to sell Partey. I'll just back up that point with an analogy like Tony said. If you remember very well, 2003, 2004 season, if not 2004, 2005 season, Van Persie just came in and he was always injured. I remember there was a season he was all out the whole season. And Wenger was pressurized. Sell Van Persie, sell Van Persie. Wenger said, I think he was out for 2 seasons or so. Wenger said, the moment this guy will start playing football, you will know why I'm keeping him. And for sure, when Van Persie got back, we knew he was the guy, you know? So for me, you don't compromise on quality. Right now, we don't have the luxury to compromise on that position. We don't have any defensive midfielder. Declan Rice is not a defending midfielder. He's a center midfield who can at least defend. But holding midfielder, we only have Partey. That's why he's injured, because he's always been there and alone. So I can't take that risk on Partey. Any other player you can sell, but Partey right now, no.
Book says Zinchenko is not good at defending at all. Don't understand why Arteta let Kieran Tierney go for Zinchenko. And I recognize this person here. Anthony Roberts, aka Vincey, says, respect Alex, Prosper Eltel, and the man who made me a big Gooner fan, Tony, the legend pugilistic boy. Arteta needs to play championship manager on the PC. Who know about multiple formations. Nice one. But it looks like the Cronkies trust Arteta more than the happiness of us fans. What's happiness got to do with it, man? It's got nothing to do with it. And just last few, Pesci, welcome back. The process is not working. 4 years is too much. And Gunners Africa says Wenger used to do that with Kolo Toure. I remember.
So
Kolo
can
Toure,
I just want to caveat that the process isn't working. The process is working, because last year we finished second to the best team in world football. Yeah. With what Arteta did last year to run Man City long into, April, that was phenomenal. That has to be commended as one of the greatest achievements with a team that really and truly wasn't built the same way as that Manchester City team. That's a $500 million team that's been built for Pep Guardiola. And I know Arteta spent a lot of money, or Arsenal spent a lot of money. But the truth is, we weren't supposed to run Man City all that way. But we did. And if you're going to say a process isn't working, then to go from 8th to title challengers, you're being a little bit remiss on the achievement of what the guy's done. Yeah? I give him credit because he also won an FA Cup in those 4 years. Yeah? So, the noisy neighbours down the road start making noise about, Arteta this, Arteta that. Well, hang on a second. Have you got an FA Cup at least? Have you got a Europa League Cup? Have you got any kind of cup? No. Arteta's got one. Shut the hell up. Yeah. And not only that, the signs were looking good at the start of the season when you had Jurriën Timber playing and you went up against Man City in the Community Shield and you beat them. And then you played them in the league and you beat them again. And the looks was good. So the process has been doing what the process should do, in that it's improved some elements of our game. But it's at times like these when things go a little bit awry, where you have to look and say, are you utilizing your squad? And the two things I've said on one-on-one on Arsenal is Arteta has two issues. Personnel, as in, has he got the right makeup of people? Because for me, you're missing that actual true out-and-out striker, the big man. And has your tactics shown you to be proficient at winning championships? And those are questionable. Yeah, they're questionable. So I don't want to say that the guy's not a scrub. Yeah, he hasn't done what Carlo Ancelotti has done. He's not gone out and won your Champions Leagues at 4 clubs, but he's done sufficiently well to be able to say he's not a scrub of a manager, and I'm going to support him. I'm going to support the process. But can I see chinks in the armor? Yes. Can I see room for improvement? Yes. But to poo-poo the whole thing and say he's rubbish, you'd be an idiot, in my opinion. You can't see through the trees, because where we was to where we are now, that's got to be put. At some point, you got to praise Arteta for some of the things he's done.
Prosper, I'll give you the last word, man, before we wrap up the show.
Yeah, as Tony has said, I wouldn't say the process has failed, but as I said on the group, the process needs a shelf life. When do we call it quits? Because if you look at Arteta's biggest Achilles heel is how does he evolve to a problem? How does he go like, okay, I have this problem. How do I switch it up and change? That has always been his problem, because his decision making is quite a bit slow. He's a bit stubborn. And as I said, this is the last 2 games we've lost, we've lost those games at the right time. And we haven't lost them to Manchester City or Liverpool, where we can say, okay, these are big clubs. Come on, guys. But we've lost them to a team like Fulham, which was down there. And how we lost those games, it's not according to because of the referee or stupid VAR decision or whatever, but we were outward beaten. In all spheres of football, we were beaten. So that should raise a question to say, okay, guys, we've been doing well. We've come to this point, and we're very close to crossing to the other side where we become a dominant team. What do we have to do? That's where Arteta is getting it wrong. And that's what we're saying, okay, fine. The guy has to do something big right now. Alex, we were talking about, no, we can't buy Tony right now. I'm telling you, if it was Ferguson, he would buy Tony.
Oh, yeah.
He would buy Tony. You have to offer the team whatever you have to offer. If you have to give them Reece Nelson to the end of the season and 2 other players and money on top of this, they give them 2 other players on loan that we are not using. Emil Smith-Rowe, Reece Nelson, who is this? Nelson. Go to that club just to beef them up because they don't have a striker. Get Tony in, win your league, give them the money for the transfer, get your players back at the end of the season. You can strike a deal. Deals are there to be struck. But I don't see him putting in that effort to get that big centre forward,
But you know what Tony spoke about last season when we were out, because Gabriel Jesus was out injured. At that time, if it was Ferguson would have gone into the market and brought the striker back then. He wouldn't have left it this long for lightning to strike again, for us to arrive at the same point. Ferguson would have brought the striker last season.
It's not something we're even supposed to be debating about right now. Right now, we're supposed to be looking at the news and saying Arsenal is going for this striker, or Arsenal is going for this centre forward. That's what we're supposed to be looking at. So for me, the process, because it would be very unfair for Arteta to lose the team when the team has reached the point where it only needed probably a season to win the Champions League. You see? and then everybody says Arteta must go when he was so close. And this is as close as you get. Right now, Manchester City is not as strong. Liverpool is not somewhere where it's untouchable. Almost all teams are a bit weak right now. This is the time where we can strike. And who knows, we can win the league and the Champions League, you know? But next season, these teams will be well glued, and the competition will get tougher, even in the Champions League, because players will go all over the places. Managers have just come in the big clubs. If you look at the big clubs, like, it's probably Real Madrid alone, and also Real Madrid has got a centre forward problem because they let go of Benzema, so they need to buy people like Mbappe probably. So if you look at all the big teams right now, they're not as strong even in the Champions League. So this is the best time to elevate ourselves from a participating team to a winning team, you know. And how do we do that? We make drastic changes, like, okay, fine, let's go and buy this centre forward, whether it costs us 80 million. We really need this player, and let that player come. That's where you spend the big money, you know.
Well, I was going to ask Tony about the point you make about at some point you have to draw the line in the process. Surely, four seasons and counting, Tony. How much longer do we gravitate towards this process? So we have to draw the line at some point. And I understand what you're saying, you know, but progress and this, that, and the other. But I'm still not convinced. But anyway. Sorry, man. I'm sorry, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the frustration of people who look at it and go 4 years, no league title. It's not no trophy. It's no league title. Because if we're actually counting trophies, there's 2 trophies in amongst there, even though you might not want to count the Community Shield as a trophy. But there's still 2 trophies in there. It's not the ones that we want, yeah? But the point is, realistically, we fell away last year because he didn't have the players he needed. And we were there. We were close enough. We could feel the championship coming. And then Saliba fell, and it was like, oh no. And then this year, again, we're within touching distance. But
and then something will happen.
Something will happen, yeah. Can we get a League Cup? No, because we're out of the League Cup, Anthony.
Yeah, I think it's been a little bit. Yeah.
Do I even want a League Cup? Well, not really.
Why not? No.
I don't know. I'm being totally honest with you. The same conversation we're having about the process not working, despite the fact that during the 4 years of the championship of Arteta, we've won the FA Cup and the Community Shield. Everybody's going to turn around and say, but you never won a league. Yeah? Everyone will turn around and say, oh, Arsene Wenger won X amount of FA Cups. He won 3 league titles, but he never won a Champions League, did ya? The same argument is what everyone's going to put on Arteta, even if you win the League Cup. So for that reason, there's only one cup that really matters, the league. Yeah? And he was so close to that. So that tells me that is the trophy that will appease the fans. I don't think a trophy does not appease fans.
You're right. I
guarantee you, we'll win the FA Cup this year, and fans will next season go, yeah, but that's not the trophy we were supposed to win. That's just a trinket.
I've got to end the show.
There's one more point to raise here.
Go for it. I'll give you the last.
Just like Tony is saying, you know, I was having the same debate in the afternoon with some Manchester United and, you know, soccer fans. We always meet up and have a go at each other. So the Man U guy was saying, Arsenal, you playing better now. So I looked at him and I told him, dude, the last time we won a league, a child was born. He's gone to primary. He's gone to secondary. He's gone to college. He's graduating. That's the last time we won the league. And you telling me at least we've done better. You know how much that hurts? You know? I really need a big trophy, at least consolation. So he was like, but Liverpool went 30 years. So I told him, at least Liverpool consoles with the fans with the Champions League once in a while. You see, that's why Chelsea can go down, have all these problems. When they come back, at least they win the Champions League, and everybody's like, okay, fine. They brought us a big trophy. And if you remember very well, what really got Wenger out of his job is people were tired of top four. It became routine. Why should we just participate? Why aren't we challenging? You see? So there should be growth in everything. So as long as we don't see any growth, we don't, at least if we can't get the league, let's get the Champions League. Then Arteta can stay on. At least let's try to get the Champions League, not just participate. At least we go to the final and we say, okay, fine, this guy pushed it. You know?
There you go.
That's the expectation.
Wow, I wonder what the expectation is in the Champions League on our first visit. We expect to go as far as we can. I mean, we appreciate the effort. Now, not whereby you all go flat. We know we have the Champions League. We're not buying a center forward who can make us get the points in the Champions League. And then when we get knocked out easily, and then we say, oh, we tried our best.
I think for some fans, and
wow, did we try our best? No, we didn't. See them pushing. If you see the tactics changing and everything, you will be like, tactics changing, like, or you'll be like, okay, guys, it was a tough game, but we gave it our all. Everything, we did everything right. It just didn't work out. That's football. We accept that.
Yeah. Tony, very quickly.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say, in relation to expectations of Champions League, I didn't expect us to win it at all. No way. Not in our first season back. But what I will say is teams have had, there's been that movement because of the Saudis, yeah, with certain players at certain clubs. And it's made the Champions League something that is achievable for us this year. Unexpectedly. And this is the same situation we were in last year. Unexpectedly, we were challenging for the league last year. Unexpectedly, this year, we're also challenging for the league, but we're also one of the dominant forces in the Champions League. So there is a chance that we could lose the league, but win the Champions League. And you know what? If there's a small chance that we can do that, with Thomas Partey coming back to full fitness in April, I'm going to take that chance.
Actually, I have actually said that. I actually said that last month, that Thomas Partey coming back towards the second half or the last third of the season is worth something.
Yeah, so, Champions League alone, that would be something. If we could win the Champions League this year, we would shut every club in the world. No club could come to us, Arsenal, and say, yeah, but how many Champions Leagues have you got? And we would shut every single one of them up. Even Manchester City, as good as they are, would have to kowtow and say, hang on a second, Arsenal. They're the team.
Forget about Man City. Chelsea, shut them up.
And that is why, as much as I want us to win the league, if there's a chance we can win the Champions League this year, and I'm looked at this and I'm thinking to myself, well, Man City ain't really setting the world on fire right now. They will do over the next 6 months. But really and truly, if we have a little chance, if we could bring in a player here, bring in a player there, make some slight adjustment, and be at our utmost best in April and May, and win a cup competition called the Champions League, that would be priceless.
Tell you came back just as we're looking to.
Well, I've just had chicken a la Morocco with couscous. How about that, lads? Very nice it was indeed.
I can't even pronounce it.
So very quick, because I do need to end up the show. Can we win the Champions League?
Yeah, go on. I mean, you guys are doing a marathon here, eh?
Yeah, we're about to end. Can we win the Champions League, though?
I doubt it. I'd love to say, listen, I went to the Champions League final, the famous one we lost. It's very hard to win that because you come up against great teams, you know. Real Madrid are going to be there or thereabouts again. It's just going to offer a bit of chicken there. But I doubt it. But you know what? If we beat Liverpool in the FA Cup, then then as long as in fact the draw is favourable, you've only got to win. Is it 5 or 6 matches? You know, and the only good thing this year, the Champions League finals at Wembley, isn't it?
Painful.
Oh,
That's
painful.
I need this. I need a new
after
one.
elite.
I need a new one.
You know, but
really
I
one.
find the Champions League easier to win than the Premier League. Because
That's the
sometimes
truth.
you
That
just
is
gotta
the
be a
truth.
photo and play penalties and everything. And sometimes it's just one game that, you know.
Yeah.
But the Premier League is consistency, and that's one thing that's really hard for us right now. But if we can beat Man City on a good day, then we can beat any team on a good day.
There you
So
go.
for me, the Champions League is way easier to win than the Premier League.
Guys, I have to end the show. I've been saying like for the last half hour. Tony, always good to pugilistic with you. Yeah.
Thank you
nice.
very much for
Bye.
having me on again, as always.
Nice one.
You can find me on Pugilistic Boy on
Yeah.
Instagram or Pugilist Boy on YouTube and Twitter or X.
And also 101 on Arsenal.
101 on Arsenal on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, nice one.
Okay.
Prosper. Yes, man.
Yeah,
you look
yeah.
like you're training for a fight, Prosper. You got the,
Yeah, I'm up there. Just been Tony's understudy.
Oh dear. And the original Godfather still on tour.
well,
Oh,
I'm
no.
training for a plate of chicken again. That's what I'm training for.
So the show went on longer than actually anticipated, but listen, it was a good discussion, good debates, good points that are raised, and the next time you will see me will be tomorrow morning. I'll be back, maybe one or two guests again. I'll try not to talk about Thomas Partey. I won't talk about but guys, thanks a lot again, and Tony, we need to make sure we get a winning one. That's
We
painful
do.
memory one.
We need one. We
Yeah.
need one.
Yeah, it's time. Guys, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the show. But this has been Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over
this
Wow.